Hi, guys. Good morning, and welcome to this week's episode of Global News Review. My name is Ola. I'm the founder of olaoladile.com, and I have almost over 15 years' experience in finance and trading in the economy, in making investment decisions. And so, basically, what I do on this channel is that I translate all the noisy news that you hear into simple English so that you know what actions to take to move your finances forward. So, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and stick around, share with a friend. I promise you it will be valuable. Yes. So in today's news, we basically, so what we do actually every week is that we cover global, African, and Nigerian news and how it affects your pockets. Now, we're starting with Nigerian news today. I just tried to mix it up. So this week or last week or during the week, no, last week, it started from last week actually, where we talked about the fact that um, Nigeria had cancelled the crude for Naira contract had expired and it was not being renewed because it wasn't like they canceled it. Actually, it was that the contract expired. It was supposed to be for 6 months and it was not going to be renewed because they had signed new contracts in USD. The NNPC had signed new contracts in USD, and we discussed it last week. But coming into this week, there was some response from Dangote Refinery saying that, oh, if I can't get crude oil in naira, if I have to source for dollars to buy crude oil from the NNPC, then I would have to also sell my fuel in dollars because I can't have a mismatch in currency, right? Which is quite obvious. I mean, we discussed it last week, and we discussed from the angle of we need to resolve this thing as quickly as possible, because it's going to have far-reaching impacts on the Nigerian economy, and we can't afford to have that right now. And so they came out with that. Now, what now closed this week was that a federal government panel is going to reconvene on Monday to resolve this crisis. Now, what is the potential impact of this crisis on you as an individual? So, first of all, understand that Mr. Dangote and his company, they are here for the money, right? You can't invest $20 billion into a business and be smiling when people are trying to throw you into a loss. You would take action, and that's what they've done. And now, what does that mean for us as Nigerians? One, if Dangote is going to have to source dollars to buy crude oil from the NMPC, then there's going to be pressure and increased demand on FX. That's one. Now, that's on his side. Now, if the oil marketers are going to have to source dollars again to buy crude oil, to buy the refined product from Dangote, that is double whammy on two levels of an increase in demand for FX that we are struggling to manage. Now, when there's an increase in demand, right, and there's not that much supply, what happens? The currency will be under pressure again. Now, when currency goes under pressure again, you see this inflation that we are happing up about at 20%. It's going to be like film trick. It's going to start again. Which is why when we discussed last week, it was like, man, these people need to figure this thing out as quickly as possible. As much as we think we can play, there are some things that shouldn't be played with at this time when we've sort of found some equilibrium. Why? Because demand is real. If you create real demand, right, we would show in the exchange rate. And once it shows in the exchange rate, it shows in the general price of everything. And you see, we'll now go back to that whole panic to buy dollar type thing. And if you consider the fact that yields are already high and the normal response of the central bank is to take interest rates up to slow down demand, the question is how high do they want to take it, right, to stabilize when there's real demand on FX? Do you get? And then we now consider things like questioning about the ability to uphold the rule of law, taking over a state, those kind of things. And that's an oil state. The question is, how do you want to attract investors to stabilize things? So there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. However, for you as an individual, understand that you can't control what people on the outside are doing. What you're supposed to do is respond, is position yourself and say, how am I exposed? What are my mid to near to midterm FX considerations, and how do I ensure that this thing that this people are playing with does not impact me? That's how to think, right? And so don't sleep on it. I see people are live online. Please say hi, say hi. Please just say hi so I know you. Who's reaching out, who's watching, and where you're reaching out from. So that's on the Nigerian news front. Now on the African news front, right? It's actually African news that also impacts Nigeria also. So MTN, we know MTN Group, quite popular. Everybody sort of kind of knows MTN. Is going to spin off their fintech unit in Nigeria, in Ghana, and in Uganda, and they are selling a stake to Mastercard. Now, they said that they are getting $200 million, and it was valued at 5.2. Now, that's the public information that we have. So don't quote me if it's not entirely accurate, but that's the public information. Now, why am I highlighting? Because what it means, the basic math, is that MasterCard has gotten a 4%, about 4% stake in that business. Now, what is MTN Group FinTech? It's your Momo, it's your wallet service, it's your micro loans, all those small things that MTN can leverage their technology base to get people to do financial services on it, right? Now, it's one of MTN's fastest growing units. And what MTN has done is sort of unlock some capital, unlock some value by bringing in somebody new, bringing a new company that actually does have value into their ecosystem or into their ownership structure, right? Now, when you have a minority stake like that, it means that yes, you are part of the earnings, are part of the revenue, but you don't have controlling units. So fundamentally, MTN still calls the shot in that business. However, from a collaboration perspective, for MasterCard, they are positioned to deliver their services on a larger scale because MTN has reach. So it does look like a good deal for both parties. Both parties have things they are bringing to the table. And then also remember, it's just for three countries for now: Nigeria, Uganda, and Ghana, right? Ghana and Uganda, they say, is going quite well, but Nigeria has some regulatory issues that needs to be resolved. However, it looks like a good deal for both parties. And then I think everyone is better off for it because financial inclusion is necessary. And whether we like it or not, telecoms has a significant role to play in financial inclusion. Why? Because you might not have a bank account, there might not be a bank close to you if you're like in the hinterlands, but you would have a phone. And once you have a phone, you technically have the potential to have a bank in your hands. Yeah. So financial inclusion is growing. Well done to everyone. And then finally, okay, so before we even go on, just to let you know that these sessions are powered by the Money with Club. If you've not heard about us, check us out, www.themoneywithclub.com. We are currently not taking new members. So when you go to the website, if you find us interesting, just join the wait list. We'll reach out to you when we have slots that we can take new people on. However, what do we do in the club? We find deals. We find deals, the best deals. We point you to the boring ones like the stocks, the bonds, how to get started on those ones. And then we actually find like the juicy ones like investment creatives. Last week we went for the premiere of one of our investments, right? Creative investment that we did. And those are the kind of things that we do in the club. So you just want to check us out. Yeah. And then, of course, follow us on social media handles. So follow us on our social media handles. Why? Because if there's anything you need to hear, that's where you would hear it. Yeah. So please do that. And of course, if you haven't, please subscribe. But don't just watch and walk away. Please subscribe. And then finally, we're going to global news, right? On the global news space, please now, if you are watching, just say hi. It's always good to know, just to say hi. Let me hear. Let me hear. Say hi and where you're reaching out from. So Tesla's books, I may say 1.4 billion. So this news was released by Financial Times. And so literally what happens, and I mean it's very important for if you are trying to build your financial education to actually follow analysts around the world just to be aware of what's happening. Awareness is the fundamental thing. Now, if you're aware of something, oh, I see somebody saying hi. I see somebody saying hi, Yishua. Thank you for saying hi from LinkedIn. I see that. Thank you. So if you are trying to build your financial education, you just want to know, see, you want to learn about bonds, you want to learn about how to manage your finances, how to budget. But you also need to remember that you are in an environment. So you need to keep an eye and an ear out, because no matter what English you are speaking, if you are in Nigeria and you are saving diligently, and then something happens, and then there's a handwriting on the wall that the currency is about to take a dive, and then you don't see it, I put it to you that you'll be hit in the face straight up. No shaking, straight in the face. So you have to keep an eye and ear out for the economy, what's happening around you. Now, on the back of that, Financial Times did an analysis of the recently released results of Tesla, and they found that they said they had spent about 6 billion in assets, buying assets in the past year. However, when you now look at the balance sheet figure, it's showing about 4 billion. And they are saying, where is that 1.4? Right? Where is 1.4 billion? What really happened here? Now, it might not look like much in terms of the owner is a trillionaire, or the owner is one of the richest men in the world. But from a shareholder perspective, from the fact that it's a public company, the math is not mathing. So what could be the issue? What are the options of, okay, wait, before we even go to that, um Tesla says they have about 37 billion in cash reserves, which is a lot. But then they still borrowed about 6 billion last year. The question is, if you really have these reserves, why are you borrowing so much? And these are the things that analysts go and look out for. You might be a banker, or you might be a doctor or an engineer, and you're not going to be looking at anybody's financials, which is why I say keep your eyes and ear out. Follow people that are keeping a track of these things. Why? Because they will just announce things, and then you just realize, oh my goodness, what's happening here? Right? And so the question is, why are you borrowing so much when you have plenty? And what this math is not mathing. So what could be the issue on that mathing side, right? There could be hidden costs that they did not declare, or it's explained somewhere else, right? But we can't see it, right? Where they could have lost money on something, or they may have written off an asset, but it's not stated clearly, or written off an asset or assets and it's not stated clearly. That's one. It could be accounting delay, meaning that there's something that the numbers have not been fully updated. Maybe they needed to meet a regulatory deadline, and so they just had to send it like that. That's another one. Or it could be creative accounting, right? The fact is that that is the major thing that you don't want to happen as a Tesla investor. You don't want that creative accounting. But I put it to you that as this news has come out, we are going to expect that they will either come out with an explanation, or the regulators are going to go and do an investigation. Why? Because it is a public company. Once it's a public company, and that's why public companies are less risky than venture capital. Once it's a public company, then you can't just do anyhow. You can literally go to jail for creative accounting. It's not like it's a serious matter. It actually is a serious matter. And so it should not, and I know it will not be taken lightly, right? Now, so for what should you do if you own Tesla stock? Keep your eyes out. That's how everyone shocked us. That's how there's this company in Germany that in a couple of days the stock just tanked, right? I can't remember the name of that company, but that's how these things happen. So, number one, keep an ear out and your finger close to your sell button, right? And watch out for investigations, because there definitely will be an investigation. And there will definitely also be an explanation. There will be a statement that will come out of Tesla. We expect that statement to come out quickly, because they have to manage this damage. It is not a joke. And then as an individual, because it's not just general, think about it. So Tesla has been in the news. There has been calls for their CEO, for Mr. Elon Musk, to step down because he's not focused on the company, right? And get let someone else to actually drive the ship. If he chooses to go into politics or governance, whatever you can call it, then it shouldn't impact shareholders returns the way it is impacting, because he's just using his political dreams or aspirations or inclinations, right, to take the stock up and down, right? So shareholders are somewhat calling for a replacement, or for him to hand over to someone to run the ship. That's one. And right now, finally, we're not saying that Tesla is in trouble. We're just saying that you need to keep an eye out, especially if you are a Tesla investor, because it could really go downhill quickly. Could being the key word. However, understand that the ones that have shocked us in the past, it was really a shock. And that's just understand it is never really expected. If we could see it coming from far, we would have jumped ship since. Do you understand? So just keep an eye and an ear out, right? So let's be guided on that, as especially if you are a Tesla investor or if you are considering going into Tesla as a stock. And then finally, just an announcement that gold breaks the $3,000 per ounce mark. I remember not too long ago, it was just last year that it crossed 2,000, and it was in the news, right? Why is it happening like this? Because whenever there is uncertainty, gold skyrockets. So if you have an opportunity to buy a gold bar, any of those things, they do come in handy as a store of value. Whenever there is uncertainty, the gold price. So you can buy gold coins. There are gold coins, there are gold bars, there are the mini bars, there are the full bars, depending on how chesty you are. However, gold is always a store of value. And even your gold, like your gold jewelry, you would find that um what's it called? You would find that if you, for example, bought it 10 years ago and the price of gold per ounce was maybe $1,000, right? And it's now 3,000. Even though you've had that gold for 10 years, you would sell it at a profit. You will not sell at 3,000 to a reseller or a gold souk person, because they will take it at a discount from you so they can sell it at market, but you will definitely sell it higher. So as an investment, if you have a choice to buy gold as jewelry or to buy all these shiny things, always go for gold. You get why. You get why. I see somebody popping in the chat. Hi, E. Hi, thank you. Good morning. And on this note, I want to say thank you. Don't forget that you can't outsource your health and your finances. You have to engage. Nobody can go to the gym for you and you will be fit. Nobody can eat vegetables on your behalf and you'll be healthy. It's the same thing with your finances. You have to take your finances into your hands through education and through action. You can be blowing up your head with education. If you don't take action, you are totally on your own. No impacts. See you all next week. Bye bye.